In this video, I'm going to be changing out the lower control arm on a 2010 Nissan Rogue. This Nissan Rogue is a all-wheel drive model, so keep that in mind. But before I continue, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Check out my channel content for more, and hey, have fun. Alright, let's get to it. On the 2010 Nissan Rogue, the lower control arms needed to be changed. And I mean over 10 years of dirt, grime, and grease being spat up at those bushings, as well as just living on dirt most of its life, well, it was about time. Now, the driver's side control arm is the same as the passenger side control arm, just in reverse. And I don't know how these differ to the non-all-wheel drive models, so just keep that in mind. But mine needed to be replaced because on the driver's side, there was 10 years of wear and tear on the actual bushing itself, mixed in with the grease from the constant velocity joint that had been spat up and all around the wheel well from when it tore. Constant velocity joint, if you don't know, is just CV axle for short. And it just needed to be replaced. I mean, when you deal with a car that has age, I mean, things wear out, especially rubber. Rubber and grease and rubber and grime don't mix. So, yeah. Alright, let's get to it. The emergency breakdown. I'm using the subframe bolt to lift the vehicle up so I can slide the jack stand underneath. You can use the pinch weld to do the same. Install a jack stand underneath. Lower the vehicle onto the jack stand. Using a 21mm socket, I'm going to remove the lug nuts. Using an 18mm on top wrench, 18mm socket and breaker bar at the bottom to loosen this bolt. I can't get an angle with the breaker bar because it was so problematic with the breaker bar. I'm going to try it with my impact gun. 18mm wrench. Oh yeah, this is moving. It's probably what's causing it. It needs some extra help inside the bushing. Using a 21mm, I'm going to loosen and remove this bolt using my socket, ratchet, and extension. To loosen this one, I'm going to lift up the rotor. Right in there, I'm going to use a socket, ratchet, and extension to remove. There we go, yes! It's my dog, folks. There we go. And all that's removed and loosened. I'm going to remove them. There's one. Use my impact for this one too. There's two. That's out. I'm gonna lower the jack. Move the 18mm nut and bolt retaining the bushing. Using that 18mm wrench on top. An impact on the bottom. There we go. Sweet. Bottom half, we've got an 18mm nut right here, and then an 18mm bolt right here that needs to be replaced. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a bolt right there. Needs to be replaced. Make sure this bolt spins before you try and remove it. I use an 18mm socket and ratchet on the bolt side to hold it in place, and my impact on the nut side to remove. Just like that. Now we want to make sure that this rotates, so I'm going to take the wrench that I just had. Oh yeah, you can see it moving. I know you can. If only you understood how much that meant to me right now. That was awesome. Okay, now we can pull that control arm off. I need my pry bar. I'm going to pry this away from the subframe and remove it. just like that. It's gonna be hard to see, but and if you feel kind of sketchy about that, you can put the jack back underneath when you're hammering. The ball joint, a couple of taps. Probably doesn't help that I'm using a mallet, but it's almost out. Boom. All right, so here's our old one that I pulled. You can see all of the grease on it. That's actually from the CV boot tearing, so this may not be on the one that is being replaced. This is my new one. They clearly say left. I don't think this one says it because it's OEM, but this one says left on it. We've got a bushing that I can rotate. We've got this bushing here. And that's bad. If I move to the new one, I'm going to stick a little anti-seize in there. Obviously it wasn't seized up after 10 years, much like the Lancer. So this actually is a pretty good design. So you can still move this one, but at least it's intact. And same for this other one here. I can't move this. We also have a new ball joint here. If you can't tell by the blue boot what model or make it is, what company makes this, then it's pretty straightforward. And then we've also got the old ball joint where I malleted against it. I can just barely move it or tap it into place. I can even take my shoe and move it. Okay, now I'm going to reinstall the new control arm into the vehicle. I'm going to first line up the lower half here. There we go. And I have an alignment tool that I'll stick from underneath to align the joint, or at least keep it centered in place. Oops. There we go. I know it's hard to see. There. Sweet. I just gotta lift the rotor back up, and then I can slide the rest into place. I'm going to slide the control arm into place. Install the two 21mm bolts, retaining it in place. Same thing on the other side. I'm tightening these into place. Just going to get them bottomed out so I can get that ball joint in. So just like that, I'm going to lower and I'm going to push the lower control arm down. Watch your hands. Usually I would use a pry bar, but I'm too close to the ground to use the pry bar. Pop that boot off. And then slide the steering knuckle in to the ball joint. You want to be careful and watch your hands 100%. I'm looking at the camera, but if you're doing this, don't pay attention to this. Pay attention to your hands, because this will hurt. You will be regretting your life afterwards. There we go. Just like that. Now we can push it up using the jack safely into place. There we go. Yeah! Yes! Yes! Right into place. Probably a little hard to see, but here's the bolt sliding right into place. Boom. On this side, I'm going to install this nut. The 18mm. So I'm on the jack, it's at ride height. I'm tightening them down before I torque it. Okay, now I've got to go torque it down with my torque wrench. I torque the two bolts that go to the subframe to 126 foot-pounds. Oh my goodness. For this 18 and 18 underneath, I'm going to torque that to 91 foot-pounds. Ball joint bolt on the back side is an 18 millimeter. That's going to be torqued down to 52 foot-pounds. 52 foot-pounds. Wrench on this side. Torque wrench on the other. Install the wheel and tire. Reinstall the wheel and tire. Reinstall the wheel lug nuts. Please put lug nuts on by hand first. This is a 21 millimeter torque stick. I only use these to run them down for a split second, and then I come back with the final actual torque. This is only rated at 60 foot-pounds. So, as you probably know, if you own a Nissan Rogue, that's nowhere near where the normal torque spec is for the lug nuts. And I just reversed it. And I'm going to lift and remove the jack stands. And I'm going to lower the car just enough so the wheel touches the ground. Torque the lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. Now watch how much swing there is when I use the torque stick. See? You still have some movement. Now we know they're torqued correctly. Now I can remove the jack. That's how it's done on this side. Overall, it was a very simple process for me. It took me a little bit of time to break the fasteners free, but after a little back and forth, everything came off. Now, I did find a couple of here and there's that may be a little iffy for some, like the lower control arm bolts going to the subframe. Those 21 millimeter bolts at high torque value being rusted on with 10 years of Michigan rust could be quite problematic. Or the lower control arm bolt going through the subframe and the bushing, that could be seized in place. I mentioned my Lancer, I think, in the video, and that showed to be a proof of symbolism that I had an issue with it in the past. Now with the Lancer, I actually had to cut the bushing out because I could not get the bushing to, the bolt to actually come out. It was seized in there. I don't know any other way I can explain it. So in this case, it was good. It came out. There was no issues with getting it extracted from the subframe. Now, those are pretty much the only things that I can find issues with. The ball joint bolt, if you just take the nut off and you take a punch and you just punch at it, it should eventually come out. Either way, I mean, if you grind off, you have room to grind. But other than that, I mean, I don't really see any issues. It was a pretty straightforward process, besides the high torque values. Now, hopefully you found this video helpful. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Check out my channel content for more. And hey, have fun with it. I mean, it's not hard to do. It's totally a fun thing to do.